Good morning, guys. This morning we are reading a story called "And the Citizenship Award Goes to," and we'll find out who gets that citizenship award. When we're finished reading today, we're going to be talking about thick and thin questions. So thick questions being questions that we ask that we really have to think about in order to answer. Thin questions are questions that are kind of right there in front of our face. We just have to kind of go back in the text and go, oh, yep, there's the answer. So get your notebooks ready and we'll take some notes at the end. In our small groups, we'll practice asking and answering thick and thin questions. At my old school, I was the invisible Chico. But in this school, things are very different. Nobody can get away with being invisible. That word Chico, I wonder what that word means. Invisible means you can't be seen, and I was invisible Chico. So I'm thinking that maybe that word must mean a person, a student, boy, girl. I don't really have enough evidence here to answer it, but I'm thinking at least a person. So when Mr. Rubinet says that he is about to announce this month's outstanding citizen, everyone in the classroom looks up excitedly. I never thought I would get the award because even though I'm not invisible here, I don't speak all that much. I mean, I say hello to a few kids in my class and in the lunchroom, but that's it. Again, we just said invisible means unable to be seen. But I think in this story, it doesn't literally mean you can't be seen because he's a person. And we know we can see people, right? So it must mean that people just don't take much notice to him. This month, the award goes to a new student at Sunshine School, says Mr. Rubinet. There are 4 new students in my class, so I think I am still in the clear. Doesn't sound like he wants to get the award. I wonder why. But that's a good fit question. Then he goes on. This person is someone who always says please and thank you while standing in the lunch line. This person does not push or shove. This person is a good citizen. I have watched this person on the playground. I think we can all learn a thing or two from this person. I'm wondering about a good citizen and what a citizen is. It sounds like he's noticing things that this person does that are polite, someone who maybe has manners, makes good choices. Must be somebody in the classroom who does those things. Mr. Rubinet says the prize for this month's award is a pizza lunch with him, with Mr. Rubinet, and a fancy pen and pencil set. Mr. Rubinet is everyone's favorite teacher, and when he shows the class the sleek pen and pencil set, everyone says, "Oh, nice writing utensils, Mr. R." I'm kind of having a text-to-self connection here, too. I think we've all had a favorite teacher, somebody like Mr. Rubinet. Mr. Rubinet goes on about the Outstanding Citizen Award in a very serious tone. On 2 different days, I saw this person hand the swing over to a girl who'd been waiting. I also watched this person speak very kindly to a group of kindergartners. This person also picked up a milk container and lunch tray from the floor. A very impressive move, boys and girls. I could feel a horrible lump in my throat. I didn't know if I was happy or sad about the possibility of being on the spotlight. The room was quiet with anticipation. Inside my head, I was exploding with possibility. The Citizenship Award goes to Manuel Perez. The room filled with the sound of applause. I could tell that my face was beet red because it was hotter than the sun. Mr. Rubinet asked me to stand and say a few words, but I forgot how to speak. I wonder how he's feeling right now. He said his face was beet red, it felt hotter than the sun. He said he forgot how to speak. Another great thick question. I bet that he is nervous. What do you guys think? Have you ever had a time you felt that way? Another great connection opportunity. I just smiled and took it all in. Mr. Rubinet shook my hand, and then he took my photo and presented me with the pen and pencil set. Oops, too much. Thank you, everyone, I said. Again, everyone applauded. I was beaming because I knew that my mom and dad were going to be proud of me. My abuela, too, would be over the moon about this. Suddenly, I thought of something to say. Everyone waited for me to gather my thoughts. It was my abuela, my grandmother, who taught me about manners. Always say please and thank you, I said with a smile. Today it has paid off. As Mr. Rubinet patted me on the back, I realized that this day was a new beginning for me. Okay, my friends, so we will talk a little bit more about some really good thick and thin questions in this story. But for right now, I want us to take a few notes about what thick and thin questions look and sound like. So I'm going to get my notebook ready. Okay. I'm thinking I should have made my screen bigger so you guys could see more of my notebook. All right, so we're going to make ourselves a chart. And we are going to label it thoughtful, readers, ask questions. Okay, and then our topic of kinds of questions we're going to ask are either thin questions, it looks a little blurry. There we go. Or thick questions. Okay, so as we're thinking about thick and thin questions, I want to talk a little bit more about what those questions might sound like. So a thin question is a question that I said is right there in the story. You don't have to think too hard about it. You may have to look back though. So it might be a situation where I don't remember the answer, but I'm still going to look in the text. But when I read the text, it's going to be there, right there in the story. Thick questions are what we call think and search. Those are the ones that hurt your brain just a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to think and we're going to have to search a little bit for those. So I want you to think about questions that might be questions that are right there in the text. What might they start with? What might they sound like? Sorry, guys. I'm thinking if I'm reading a story and that story is going to have questions that are right there, they're definitely easier to find instead of harder to find. I hate to break it to y'all, but the older you get, the less thin questions you have to answer. Okay? I can find the answers right in the text. They're easy to find because they're found right in the text. For those harder to find questions, sometimes we have to think about them. I have to think. And maybe even use the plot of the story, what's happening in the story, to see why I might need to know that, why it's important, what's happening before, what happened after. Thin questions are questions sometimes. They could be yes or no questions. But those thick questions, I have to use text evidence to solve or to answer. Those are those questions that I talked with you guys last week when I said, I think this because you're using text evidence to support why you think it. Because you really can't prove what you're saying just because it's right in the story, because it's not right in the story. 2, 4. Okay, and then typically those thin questions usually only have one right answer, where thick questions could have many answers to the same question. So last week also we talked about having academic debates where we may have different opinions, but if we can support our opinion, we're not necessarily wrong. Okay. And then the last thing I want us to add to our notes are what some of those questions might start or sound like. So a thin question might be a question that starts with, who did what? What? I need to see my. What did they do? How many? When, where, these sound familiar, probably from first and second grade. 5 W's. When, where, and then again, we already said yes or no. But those thick questions are going to be why. Why did somebody do something? How come something happened? I wonder why. What does the author mean when he or she says? And what would happen if? So be ready when you come to class today in small groups, guys, to talk with me or Miss Corbin about some thin and thick questions that we might be able to ask in the story that we either just read together or the story that you read with her. So I'm going to post a picture of this with the video so that you can get the picture in one shot to take your notes on like I have been doing, and then be ready to come to class to think. See you guys in a little bit.